Yo, what's good people, it's Cactus, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a full UK drill beat from scratch in FL Studio 20. I'm going to be showing you every single process, so I'll be going through the melody, sound selection, the drum patterns, mixing, arrangement, and even how to export your beat with stems in the right format. This video might be a little bit longer than my usual ones, but I don't want to skip anything. I want to make sure that you learn everything that you need to know for making drill beats in 2021. But before you watch the video, I am announcing the winners to the biggest giveaway I've ever done, so make sure you check your email if you've entered it. I'll also be announcing the winners on Instagram, so if you're not already, then follow me at jcactusmusic. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing that you want to do is set the BPM. And for UK drill beats, the BPM is usually set between 140 and 143. You can creep up a little bit, but for this one, I'm going to stick on 142. And then picking the instrument is entirely up to you. It depends what kind of vibe you're going for, but a lot of classic UK drill tracks will use pianos. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I love the orchestral side of drill, so I like to use strings and choirs and then blending pianos as well. So I think I'll go for that vibe today. So I'm using addictive keys for the piano. If you know music theory, you don't need to worry about setting the scale, but if you don't, then go to helpers, scale, highlighting, and for drill you want to pick a minor scale, so I'd recommend either minor harmonic or just minor natural. I'll go with minor harmonic this time, and I set it to C sharp. And when you're writing the melody, you can do it a number of ways. You can either think of the count melody and build the chords around that, or you can start with the chord progression and then build the count melody after, or you could even just find the bass notes that you want to use and then build everything on top of that. But I'm going to start with the chords for this one. So a basic C sharp minor chord would look like this. I'm just skipping every other note. But to make it sound more interesting, I'm going to invert the E. It's literally just bringing it up an octave, so it's still the same chord, but the E's in a different position. And then to create a real dark vibe, you don't want to bounce a lot between the chord progressions, so try sustaining the root note. So for example, C sharp's the root note of this chord, so I'm going to keep C sharp on this one. So this is the chord we had before, C sharp minor. If I literally just bring this note down one and then up an octave just to match what we did before, we've got an instant dark drill vibe. I'm not going to do that same melody that everyone does in the tutorials. I'm going to switch it up for this one. So now we need to work out where we want to go from C sharp. So we could do that. We could go from A and then to G sharp. So let's do the same again. Let's build a chord. And then I'll do the same with this one. I'm just skipping every other note. And let's try inverting these two. Yeah, there we go. So we're going from C sharp to A to G. We could do A and G again, and then switch it up here. So we could go. Yeah, that might work. So let's see what we can do here. We can bring in a chord, maybe invert the C sharp. Do the same for this one. Just invert in the middle note. Same again. So now we've got a chord progression. And then for the bass notes, we can just use the root notes of the chords. So I could sustain that C sharp because it's the same for them too. And remember, the root notes are the ones we started on, so A5 and G sharp. And then to make it more natural, I'm going to press Ctrl and A and then Alt and R to randomize the velocity. And then I'm just bringing down this velocity wheel here. And to make it even darker, I still think that halftime is one of the best plugins for drill beats. So I'm going to put some halftime on and see how it sounds. So it sounded too dark, so bring it up an octave. Maybe even bring the bass notes up an octave. Just because it will get too muddy. I've got it set to 4 times as well. Now for a little counter melody, just to switch it up. So because I've used halftime with 4 times, it means you have to bring the notes quite far back. And something similar here. Dun, dun, dun. I'm actually going to bring everything up an octave. Just something simple for now. And now I've taken the same piano and copied it, because in this one I just want 1 times halftime, so it's easier to just keep them on separate channels. And I'm just using this one to accent some of the notes. And now I can think of a little bit more of a count melody. Yeah, there we go. Just real simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it with drill. Now I definitely want some strings in there, and my go-to string bank is Strings of Winter or BBC Orchestra. For this one I'm going to use Strings of Winter, and I'm just going to use my keyboard to think of some kind of count melody. Something like this. So I'm just going to record this in. I'm going to turn the metronome on, hit record. So some of them might be off, but I can just take the best one, quantize it, and then repeat it. So to quantize it, it's just Control and Q for the shortcut. So I just took the best one, copied it across. So now we've got this. And you know what, to thicken this up, I can press Control and A to highlight everything, Shift and click, and then Control and up. And this is just copying it up an octave. And I could bring the higher ones down in velocity by just holding Alt and then using the mouse wheel. Yeah, it sounds hard. And now to match the dark vibe, I'm going to try a halftime on the strings as well. So I've just got the halftime on 1 bar and 2 times. And then I've just added some reverb with a low cut and quite high mix, so it's pushed more into the background. And then when I'm using strings, I like to add a few different layers. So I'll add one in 1 octave and then maybe a lower range of strings like a cello or something, just to get the bass notes. So this is what I've added. It's literally just accenting the strings. And then this is my other go-to plugin for orchestral sounds. This is the free one, BBC Orchestra. So for this one, I just want to add this one sound in to add emphasis to the piano. So I'm going to do something similar to what I did with the count melody for the piano. So just something like this. No, not there. Let me bring these down one. Yeah, that's the one. And then the last instrument I think I need for this one is maybe a choir, something like BBC Orchestra, or you can find some good vocal phrases from Contact and then find something to just sit underneath. Actually, it's not BBC, it's just the Spitfire Labs choir. And what you could do is take the first piano that we used, the chord progression, copy this and then paste it into the choir and get rid of the bass notes. I'll get rid of the counter melodies too and just extend them. See what this sounds like. I'll have to bring it down a couple octaves. Yeah, I think I like the sound of it in this octave. I'm actually going to try a vocal phrase for this one. So I set the scale to C sharp minor. Maybe that one at the end or here. Let's try this. I've just muted the strings for now. This one might actually work. I could even just alternate between that and the other choir that I use from Spitfire. And then what you want to do is make sure that everything's named right before you start linking it to the mixer. So just name everything according to what instrument it is, because that's going to make it easier when you export the stems at the end. I've already linked mine, but I'll do it for the choir. So to rename it, you just right click, rename. You can choose the color if you want, enter the name. And then look, if you do it by this way and drag it up to the number, it's not going to change the name in the mixer. So if you wanted to link them all at the same time, you can just click and drag down and highlight everything. Obviously, I only need to link the choir right now, so I'm just going to highlight the choir, go to insert 7 and then press Ctrl and L. Now you can see we've got the choir linked and it's named. And then for mixing, I kind of mix as I go along. So you saw me before when I put like halftime on, sometimes I'll add an EQ after that and adjust the level, mainly in the channel rack. I'll do most of the work there. But to make things easier, I'm going to create a bus and link all of the instruments to it. So I'm just going to right click on an empty one, rename, and just type in instrument bus. Now I'm going to hold Ctrl, click and drag over all of them, right click down here on the instrument bus and then route to this track only. And now if I put an EQ on this one, it's going to affect them all. So I definitely need to take out some lows because I want to save room for the 808. So I'm just going to bring this down to a high pass, change the steepness. So I usually do it to around about 100 Hertz, and then when I've got the 808 in, I adjust it. It's going to be different for every track, so you want to make sure that your bass is in and then you want to mix things together. But in the vocals, I want to add this plugin because I want to bring the pitch up a full octave and then blend it in. So now we've got a high pitch one mixed with the normal pitch. See how that sounds with the mix? And then I could filter that out with an EQ. So to filter it, I can do a high pass and a low pass, or I could just do a band pass. I just want it quite subtle. So when you're mixing it and you're using effects and different EQs, when you're using these plugins, it's going to adjust the volume. For example, with this one, because I'm cutting so much out, the volume's going to dip back down. So to compensate for that, you can bring it back up. That's what this bit is up here. And that's what gain staging is. So when you're using these plugins, if you realize that the plugins made the volume jump up, then use the output knob to bring everything back down. And what I'm thinking for this track is, I only want this bit to repeat. And then maybe after every 8 bars, the full thing can play. So it's just going to repeat like this. Maybe keep the vocals out for a little bit. So this will be the main verse. And then this bit can play. That's just going to add a nice bit of variation. It's going to stop it getting boring. So before I start putting in the drums, I'm actually going to do that in the playlist. So I'm coming to the playlist, I'm going to click up here and then click on split by channel. And that's going to separate everything so each instrument's got a separate pattern. And now I can bring everything in. So what I could do is copy it across with Control B. I'll just do it a couple times. So for the main verse, I just want half of it to repeat. So I just hit C to activate the slice tool. I'm holding Shift and I'm going to right click and drag down. And that's going to cut off the right side. It usually just cuts off the shortest side. And then I can copy this one across and do that again. So before I arrange it properly, I am going to add the drums. So I'm going to create a new pattern, just name it drums, and I'll bring that down here. And I know this drum pattern is going to be different to this one because the chord progression changes in this section. So I'm just going to focus on this bit for now, and then I'll work on the second 808 pattern later. If you've made a new pattern and you want to see where the chord progression is when you're adding the 808, so you know which root note to put them on, then what I'd recommend doing is going to the piano roll, just copying the pattern, and then in your drum pattern, just add a sampler. So look, I'm just going to add a sampler here and then paste the pattern in. I remember for this first one, we would just repeat in this first half. Now when I'm adding my drums, for example, if I was adding an 808 here, I can see the notes behind because Ghost Notes is enabled. If you don't know where Ghost Notes is, just come to the arrow, go to Helpers, and then make sure Ghost Channels is selected. Alright, so when it comes to drums, sound selection is the most important thing. When I first started making beats, I used to add compressors and EQs to everything just because I thought I needed to. But when I started getting into sound design, I realized at the sound design stage, I'm actually using compressors and EQs there. So when you guys use these packs, everything's already been compressed. You don't need to do any of that again. If you start off with good quality sounds in the first place, you save yourself a lot of time. So I'm just going to grab a snare from my pack. And the standard drill bounce for a snare goes on the 3 and the 4. So look, if I put the metronome on, I'm going to count it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's that simple. And then you can press F7 to go to the piano roll, Control and B to copy it. And then if you want, you can add a couple notes just depending on the bounce that you want. And then for hi-hats, a lot of drill beats will use sounds like this. So it almost sounds like a snare or a counter snare. And the pattern for hi-hats is to skip 2, and then skip 1. But I'm just going to leave that last one because I'm going to hit F7 to go to piano roll and then just copy and paste this a few times. And I've got instant drill bounce. And then to get a better bounce, you can start adding the filler notes in. So you can set it to quarter step or step, whichever one you want. And you can bring the velocity down of these ones. So I've set it to quarter step for this one. So I can copy that with Control B and then switch it up for the last 4 bars. So what I could do with this one is extend this. This is just another way to get a bounce. And then press Alt and U to chop the notes. And I can bring the velocity down. I'm just right clicking and dragging down there. I'm actually going to do that in a different place. I might do it here. So Alt and U to chop, and I'm going to drag it up. You could even bring the filler notes down in pitch. It just depends on the vibe. And then I might adjust the panning for this one. So I'm going to highlight everything. I was just holding Control, clicking and dragging over. Come to Control and then note pan. Bottom half is the left side, the top is the right. So I'm just going to drag up, see what this sounds like. And I'm going to adjust the panning of some of these as well. Maybe this one, just subtle changes. And then at this stage, you could add a second hi-hat just to accent some of the current ones. And then I'm going to mess with the panning with these ones. Alright, so now for the 8-weight, you want something that sounds quite deep, quite distorted. Just listen to a lot of drill tracks and try and find an 8-weight that matches some of them. That's what I did when I was creating my pack because I wanted all of them to fit for drill beats. But I'm thinking this one for this beat. And when you're dragging in 8 weights, first you want to make sure that it's in key. So right click on here, edit in audio editor, click this button here, and then detect pitch regions. I've already tuned mine to C, so you don't have to do that. But if, for example, it was tuned to D, then you'd come to the middle tab and then right click on D. That just means that every time you hit C, it's actually going to be C. And now I want the note to only play for as long as I hold it. So I'm going to turn on the envelope and bring everything down except for the hold. So now because we've got ghost notes on, we can see the root notes of the chords which we brought in. So you generally want to follow the root notes of the chords, but when you add in the filler notes, like towards the end of the bar, that's when you can use different notes. So what I like to do is just think of the pattern in my head first, lay out the pattern, and then work out where the slides are going to go. So this was my pattern, but now I want to work out where the slides need to go. So to add a slide note, I'm just going to hit S, and that's activated slide mode. I could have just clicked up there, and then when I bring a note in, you can see it's got the slide tool next to it. The other option is to draw in a normal note, double click, make sure slide selected there. And then when you're drawing a slide note, this is how it works. So it's going to hit the bottom note, and then it's going to slide up to the note that you want it to. And it's going to take that amount of time for it to get from this note to this note. So from C sharp to E. If I bring it back, the slide's going to happen quicker. Alright, so I've got the 8-weight pattern, and when I'm adding these higher octaves in, these higher notes, I bring the velocity down, so you can see the velocity down there. And with this section here, I created a delay effect, so I basically repeated this, but then gradually brought the velocity down, and then I adjusted the panning as well. And a lot of the times for the slides, I'll use the notes that are already within the chords. And then you want to layer this with a beefy kick. But before I do that, I put something on the master channel. And I always add a classic clipper. You can use a soft clipper, but I just like the sound of a classic clipper. So look, I've got the classic clipper on. I export at negative 0.1. And then I just bring the slope down so it's not as harsh. So look, this is how I designed the kick. So I purposely clipped it. This is with classic clipper off. And then this is with it on. You can hear the difference in the punch straight away. So I'm going to drag the kick in, copy the 8-weight pattern, and then paste it into the kick. And then I'm going to get rid of all of the slide notes. Hit Control and A to highlight everything, then Alt and K. And then if it's the first time doing this, you'd need to right click on C so that everything's set to C. So right click on C6. And then if you hit Shift and D, it brings everything to the same length, so it's a bit easier to see. And with all them kicks, it would just sound way too busy, so I take out quite a few of them. I'm also going to bring the velocity up a bit. There we go. And then with perks, I usually just look at where there's some space. So I don't really want the perk to clash with the kick and the snare all of the time. So I just try and create a bounce. So something as simple as that. So something like this would sound good at the start. And this, which I've used in a lot of my beats, but just always sounds sick. The other thing you could think about adding is something like a reverse open hat or reverse impact like this. Then I could add a second one in, which is like half the time of the first one. Maybe here instead. I've also brought in an open hat, and I'm just going to use this to emphasize some of the kicks. But I only want it to be short, so I'm going to right click and select cut itself. And then in the piano roll, I'm just going to drag these on. I'm just copying them and I'm bringing the velocity down. So it's going to stop when this other one plays. It's maybe about this length. So I've got my drum pattern now. The only thing that I need to change is the 8-weight pattern at the end of the 8 bars when the other chords come in. But for now, I'm going to split the drum pattern and then bring in all of the drums. You don't have to do this, but I like to make everything the same length just so it's more visible. And I've just brought them up. So look, if I copy these across, the 8-weight pattern that I put in there won't match these second chords that I play in here. So all I need to do is make this 8-weight pattern unique and then change the 8 weights in the second half. So this is what I've changed it to. I'm just matching the root notes of the chords. I've changed this pattern a little bit and I've kept this echo bit in, and I might only use this bit for the end of the 8 bars. Then I also need to match that with the kicks. So again, I can just copy the 8 weights and paste them in the kicks. All right, so before I start arranging everything, I'm just going to mix it all properly. So look, because I've named everything first, I'm just going to click on the snare and drag down and then go to the mixer channel, start on an empty bus, hold Control, Shift and hit L, and now it's routed everything for me. So when it comes to mixing, most of the time I just mix as I go. So like you saw me before, I was putting in EQs, I was adjusting the levels in the channel rack, and then the final thing that I do is come to the mixer channel and just do one last tweak with the levels. Generally speaking, you want the kick to be the loudest thing, followed by the snare and the 8 weight. But don't always go from dB because that's not perceived loudness. So something could have a higher dB but still sound quieter. I won't go into why that is right now, but just bear that in mind. And then it's all about balancing things out. So for example, if you've got a couple perks in there, if one of them's panned to the right, maybe pan the other one to the left. You just want to find that good balance. With these 2 perks, If you've got headphones on, you'll hear the delay that's already set in there, and the delay is bouncing between the left and right ear, so I don't need to pan them. And I'll usually mix with everything playing at the same time, but just for this tutorial, I'm going to show you the drums. So the kicks, thumping the loudest. Impact's about the right volume. Open hat needs to come down. And then because the open hat's pan to the right, this perk's going to go to the left. With the hi-hats, you can keep them in the middle. You could pan them slightly to the left or right, or you could use a plug-in like Pan Man, and this will actually pan it for you. So if I bring the width back, so you can see it's going back and forth. It's just going to create a cool effect in headphones. If you don't have Pan Man, then Fruity Pan-O-Matic is a stock plugin, so you can adjust the LFO and the amount. You can copy these settings if you want. And if you've got headphones on, you'll hear the hi-hats going between the left and right ear. And then I'll play it with the instruments and just balance everything out. So look, we've got this piano and this one, which are quite similar. So this is going to go to the left. The piano can stay to the right. With the strings, they're already panned. So look, even though I haven't changed anything, you can see from the levels that within the plugin it's already panned, so sometimes you don't need to do anything. And if I think things are sounding a little bit too muddy, I will cut out some lows, but you don't really need to do it to your drums. Even the reverse impact, you can see that it's already got the lows taken out. So look, the only mixing that I've really done is just leveling and panning, which I mainly do in the channel rack. And then the only EQs that I added was one on the instrument bus and then one on the vocal, just because I wanted a filter effect. On the master, I've just got a classic clipper. I'm sending the output to minus 0.1 and you can see how much it's clipping. So quite a lot. But I like the punch it gives the kick. So don't overthink mixing. I'm telling you, if you just start with good quality sounds, do the right leveling, choose the right sounds that complement each other and they're not fighting over the same frequency range, then you're going to have a clean mix. All right, so for arranging it, I think this can be the hook, obviously with the drums. I'm going to copy this across. That's going to be the verse, this full thing. This can be a hook. We're going to need these drums because it's got the other chords in them, and then that can repeat. So it's a 32-bar verse. When a rapper's listening to it, they'll hear it as 16 bars. Half the time for the hook, and then just the same again. So look, when you're arranging beats, you just want to make it real simple for artists. They want to listen to it and they want to know exactly what the intro is, exactly where the hook and the verses are. You don't really want to confuse people too much if you're trying to get placements. And generally speaking, you want all of the energy to be in the hook. And when it's starting off, you want things to build up. So you don't want everything playing at the same time straight away. You're just going to ruin all the surprises. So I'll show you what I mean. So in the intro, I usually take out all of the drums and I could maybe just leave a piano in. And then that reverse impact. And then the only thing that I want to play straight away is maybe the crash and the hi-hats. I want to save these strings for later on. And I'm actually going to bring these down to octaves. So I'm going to make this one unique, hit control and down. And this is going to help build energy up. Now we slowly want to build things up. So this is actually starting with the verse. I'm actually going to label it too, just so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So verse 1, this next section is hook 1. So if I have everything playing at the same time, it's just going to sound too busy. So I'm gradually going to lead up to the hook where most things play. I'm actually going to make this pattern unique because I think there's too much going on in the 8/8s for the start of the beat. And then you just want to start introducing new things so it can gradually build up. So look, we just got the piano, snares, the 8/8 comes in, then the kick. Maybe we could add the second piano now. Let's add these perks in the beginning as well. Then I'm going to cut the hi-hats here. So yeah, these strings in the second piano have come in, and then this next bit, the other instruments come in, and we could maybe add the vocals here as well. I'm saving these other strings for the hook. And then before the hook, I want everything to cut. It's just going to take all the energy away. And then when the hook comes in, pretty much everything's going to play. I'm going to take out them vocals though, and just leave the other choir in. And I'll take out this, and maybe the piano just for this section. I'm going to take out that crash and the perk. I don't want everything to play all the time. So I could maybe take it out here as well. And then just to switch up the pattern again, I'm going to change the 8-weight and take out these slides. And then I can even make this kind of fade out. So I'm going to take one, turn it into a slide, and turn the volume all the way down, and then I'm going to drag it over the E. But I think we definitely need that reverse impact in there again. Now what I can do is just get rid of the second part, decide what to do with the end of the hook, so maybe cut out some hi-hats again. Then copy the first verse. And let's just listen to the transition between the hook and the verse, because we might have to make it different to the intro. So I'm thinking to actually take out some hi-hats here. Maybe even take out the 8-weights there. I think I want some of the vocals in the intro, so maybe just this section. Yeah, this is sounding hard, so I just need to add my tag in now. So when I made my tag, I made it around about 140 BPM, so it's already pretty much on time. So I'm just going to turn down the volume from here, and I'm going to assign it to a mixer track. Let's listen from the intro.
Cactus.
Yeah, this is cold. Sounding mad. And with the tag, if you're exporting for YouTube purposes, then I put a couple tags in. So one just before the hook.
Cactus.
And then one before the end of the last hook. And then when I export the first version, I just mute these two. So just hit T and then click over these to mute them. But now I just need to think of something for the outro. So usually for these cinematic outros, I like to copy the hook, just have everything playing, and then I can just fade that ending out. And then in the master, I'm going to add fruity balance. I'm going to right click on volume, create automation clip, I'll bring it down to the bottom, and then I'm just going to drag this endpoint down. and then we've got a nice outro. Right, so the last step is to export your beat. So the first thing that you want to do is think of a name. And then what I like to do is hit F11, call it drop 'em, and then the author is me. And that just means that when you export it, it's going to already save the title and artist for you. So make sure that everything has its own mixer channel, because when you export the stems, it separates the mixer channels. So if something's not linked to it, then it's not going to export that one stem. So we've already linked everything. I'm going to go to File, Export, and then Wave File. I'm going to create a new folder called Drop 'em, and the file name, I'm going to name it Cactus Drop 'em. In brackets, I'll put the tempo, which is 142 BPM, and then at the end, the key, which is C sharp minor. Hit enter, and now you want to make sure that Wave File and MP3 selected. With MP3, around about 160 is fine. If you're just sending these to artists in emails and you don't want the file size to be too big, but the quality still wants to be there, then set it around 160. And then for the wave file, you can increase the quality if you want, but 16-bit tends to be fine. And then make sure you hit split mixer tracks. And then at the top, you can either have it on cut remainder or leave remainder. So if you've got some instruments that might have some reverb at the end, then it would save the tail of the reverb. If you set it to cut, then it's just going to cut it off, and then hit start. And then this is what it's going to look like when you've exported the stems. So you're going to get this current file, which you don't need. So I'm going to delete that. And then when I told you to name it within FL, this is what it does. It saves it in the artist and title section. So for the stem folder, I'm just going to highlight everything except for the master. So I just want the stems in this one. I'm going to right click. And then if you've got WinRAR, then you can just click that, add to drop 'em, and it'll create one for you. Or you can send to compressed zip folder. So now I've got the zip folder with the stems, the high quality wave file, the MP3, and then if you want a version with your tags for BeatStars, then just go back and re-export a version and unmute the tags. So I hope you liked the video, and I hope you were feeling the beat. This was more of a beginner's tutorial, but I just wanted to show you my full process making a drill beat from scratch. I'm still going to be uploading every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 PM, so I will start doing more advanced tutorials as well. But let me know what you guys want in the comments. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Cactus.